I'm back again with another video for your Saturn in Return Survival Kit series. On my last video, I had a special message to our Saturn returners as Saturn returned back to Scorpio last week. This week, I am here to bring you the story. And that's what this video is about. It's about telling your truth story and remembering and learning and coming to completion. In this video, I'm going to take an even more intimate look into my story. Saturn return, retrograding back, to me is about your truth story. And in order for me to share with you what my truth story is, I would like to go over a few things about the Saturn in Scorpio generation so that I can really fully give you a background into my own life with just your understanding of this natal transit. So let's talk about Scorpio energy. Scorpio energy, as I've said before, does represent rebirth, death and rebirth. This, in its most simplest forms, is sex and death. Scorpio, in its most simplest forms, is death and sex. Sex and death. Rebirth, transformation. There must be something that has to end in order for something new to begin. And this is the cycle of life. And this is sort of what Scorpio represents. So with Saturn and Scorpio, we're looking at some sort of restriction in the life of the natal Saturn and Scorpio when it comes to death. So many who have a heavy Scorpio house or who have planets in Scorpio, many who have planets in the 8th house, and definitely those who have Saturn in Scorpio may have struggled or had some restriction in understanding and their relationship when it comes to death. Now, some may have already understood and had a very comfortable relationship with it, but have gone through their life being tested on their understanding of what death is. And some may have just been straight up fearful of death and not understanding what it is and being told various things in our life. So with the Saturn in Scorpio, there's a heavy theme of death from a young age in which the person is struggling with the concept, the idea. Let's also talk about sex. So with sex, the person is very much so learning about sex at an early age. Now, this can be through a fairly decent experience, but what I have come to see as a pattern is that it is very much so usually a very uncomfortable experience at an early age when it comes to sex. And this experience kind of is the theme of the person as they grow into their teens and into their 20s, even if they're not completely aware of it. Some might push this this very uncomfortable sexual experience to the back of their memory. Some hold it as a strong memory, and whichever way that one deals with it, it is usually an early childhood experience, and usually in their younger life, it can also be like in the teens, but usually, before 18, you're experiencing this very interesting, awkward, uncomfortable experience in introducing your sexuality to yourself. So what we are experiencing in the Saturn retrograde is understanding and seeing the whole story come to its full completion. And so that gives me a very good segue into my truth story. So this is really going to be quite uncomfortable for me. Today, one of my students, my young little kids that I teach on a weekly basis, gave me some nail polish. So I'm channeling my inner child by wearing the nail polish that she gave me. So that hopefully I can have the love and the courage to share with you, so that my truth story can be one that helps others out there to find and seek their own. This is what I have come to know and understand. So for me, as a young girl, I've often felt very uncomfortable in my own self, and had a very difficult issue with fitting in. That is what I could say is my childhood story, and I often wanted to fit in, and so I would often, do actions or follow along in order to be a part of something. And this is something that I have dealt with and come to understand about myself now in my adulthood. So my journey with Saturn themes. When it came to death, as a young kid, I grew up in a fairly Christian home, strong, solid Christian home. And I had a very uncomfortable relationship with death. And I would often find myself sitting in my bedroom at night, scared completely out of my mind, thinking about what happens after life. And this is as a young little girl. And I thought that I was very much so solid in my religion and spirituality, but whenever it came to these nights that I would sit and think about death, I could not find the comfort. So fast forwarding into my middle 20s, I was introduced to astrology by a coworker, and from there I began to find a lot of healing and understanding of myself through the studies of astrology. So by the time 2012 came, I had very much so been studying astrology, underneath, quietly in my own. But I started to become a lot more public in 2012, and my relationship with death really came into a lot more healing as I continued my studies with astrology. My studies with astrology only led me into more occult studies and understanding of occult knowledge and seeking occult knowledge. Let's go back again to my early age as a young kid, experiencing sex in a very awkward time for me. And I was very young when I first was introduced to sex, and it was not something that I understood at all, and I'm still very foggy as to the full memory of it, but this moment, I'm gonna call it abuse, was very traumatic for me, and that's why I'll call it abuse. And I held this as a secret for most of my life until I had to reveal it in order to come clean and to be honest with the people that I love. So it was throughout my life, I have struggled with my sexuality, and I have struggled with understanding sexuality in the material world. This moment and memory was very traumatic for me, and not only the memory and moment, but the actions thereafter, in which I didn't tell anyone and I kept it as a secret, and it was a very, very heavy burden for me. So coming to my truth story, in 2012, when Saturn hit Scorpio, I ended the lies. I ended my commitments to things that didn't make any sense to me. That I let go of the need to please anyone else but myself in 2012. And I took a very big leap and risk and just closed my eyes and just went for what I wanted. And this is why I outed myself as an astrologer by 2012, or a student of astrology by 2012. And I started to go on a journey in understanding my insecurities and discomfort with my sexuality. And through poetry, through music, and through writing, through a lot of journaling, through meditation, through the study of metaphysics, I started to come into my own self and understanding about my relationships with death and my relationships with bisexuality. At the end of 2014, I came out completely to my family about my abuse. And this was a very uncomfortable situation, and it left me in a very vulnerable place. But it was only through my studies with astrology and my understanding of my place in the world, because of my study of astrology, of the metaphysics, of the occult, that I actually had the strength to do this. The secret as a little girl that I had kept 25 plus years came out to the surface, and on my own terms. And it was scary, and but I had to do it. And I'm sure for a lot of the people who were affected by this, it was a complete surprise for them. But for me, I knew it was coming, and I knew it would happen. For I had been really exploring who I was that year as Saturn neared to my Saturn, especially sexually. And I was really starting to really understand the origins of my insecurities and why I felt such tension while living in this world. Right at this time, I was deep into occult studies, and I had just exposed my secret, and I just felt so vulnerable that I believe I attracted the information that I got. My heart bled for other people who were victims of abuse, and I came across some information about child pedophilia, and I came across information about occult knowledge when it comes to the practice of sex abuse on children, and this opened me up to a completely new world of the occult. My truth story is that through the experiences that I had as a child, I was able to be in a place of empathy when my Saturn was exact. And so I became very much so in tune with the secrets of the world. I became very in tune with the secrets of the world. There are many ways that people understand the occult world, but this was my gateway. My gateway was through my child abuse, my sexual abuse experience, because I was able to be empathetic, and I was seeking to help others, and I was seeking to understand the mentality of victims of this, in which I stumbled across and fell down the rabbit hole of secret societies. And my studies are still going on. I still study astrology very intimately, and I still am studying the occult world. So I don't have all the answers, but my truth story is that in astrology, we understand that the soul chooses the alignments of the stars, which is your natal chart, in order to come and manifest into the world and fulfill, a very unique purpose. And with that understanding, you come to the understanding that you choose your parents, that you choose the lifestyle and experience as a child that you have. And so I have shifted in my truth story from victim to spiritual warrior, in which I have understood that I had to have these experiences in order to step into the knowledge that I so passionately look for. And so if you follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, you'll see that I am very passionate about getting the truth out and seeking it for myself. So this is my truth story. And I wanted to do something special for the young Kareen who did not know how to handle the pain. So with that being said, and with revealing my story to you, I wanted to do something very special tonight for the children. I wanted to do a special tribute. And I just want to say to remember the children. Remember that they are who we leave this world to. And as we conduct ourselves in the shifting process of this earth, to remember the children. This is for you, little Kareen, and for all of you Saturn and Scorpios and heavy Scorpio 8th housers out there. This is for all of the victims of abuse. A special song for you. For all of you Saturn returners, remember why you're here. Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Children will not obey, but children will listen. Children will look to you for which way to turn, to learn what to be. Careful before you say, listen to me. Children will listen. Children will listen. That is the truth story that I have to share with you. And I encourage all of you Saturn returners to find your truth story. If you do have any journals that you have from the end of 2014 or throughout the time of 2012 through 2014, I encourage you to go back and take a peek so that you can get ready and be ready to see the completion occur at this time. And if you don't have a journal, maybe go back into your Facebook like I did and look to see what you were about and what you were doing at that time, and it might give you an idea of what your unfinished business is.